Hello, welcome back. Today we've got my POV from Thundercrit, organized by the North London Thundercats. Based on the qualifiers, I'm starting in the second row, the back row, but I managed to get a pretty good start, clipped in pretty fast and got on top of the pedals pretty quickly. Had a quick look back and realized that we've got a little gap right off the start, so hoping to keep it that way. The course we have today is quite technical, so I'm hoping that means that it would be harder for anyone in the chase group to catch up to us. But as you can see, I think the guys in front are taking this first lap a little bit safer. We're not going very quickly through the corners, so I think we do end up getting caught pretty quickly. And I think maybe through this hairpin we should be able to see the rest of the group. Yeah, they're basically back on our wheel. And you know, it's the first lap. Everyone still has a lot of energy, everyone's still very motivated to chase, but I'm hoping that if we keep attacking them on this big outer loop and keep the pace up, we might be able to force a gap and then, as I said earlier, use the technical section to kind of stay away. And as we take this left turn into the more technical bits, we can see that this section is basically made up of a bunch of chicanes. And if you notice, I'm taking quite a different line from Alex, the rider in front of me. I'm mainly focusing on taking a wider line, trying to hit a later apex, especially in that previous middle chicane. I felt like that allowed me to keep my momentum, keep my speed better, and basically just take the chicane as straight as I can. And right after the chicanes, we come out into this hairpin that's going slightly uphill onto the track, and it's a big acceleration on the home straight before swinging back down into turn 1. So as we cross the line into the third lap, we've been sitting on Alex's wheel in second position, and so far he's been a good wheel to follow. You know, he rides for the North London Thundercats, so I assumed he's a strong rider. He's definitely been pulling me along on this outer loop area, so I'm happy to stay in his draft. As you say that, he takes a corner a little bit too hot and had to cut through the grass. You know, another reason why he might be taking a much tighter line through the corners could be because he's riding more defensively. He's been looking over his shoulder, checking in on me, but honestly I had no intention at this point to overtake him, and I was just happy to follow his wheel. Just about done with the third lap, and we are passing a lap rider on the left. And from what I've heard actually, from some of the other riders, apparently the guy that we just passed was drunk, and I think people were saying that he was drinking since the start of the day, like as in start of the event. So I mean, maybe he was just there for the vibes and for the fun, but still I think it was quite dangerous for him to be allowed on the track with us, especially since we're all racing on track bikes without brakes. In fact, I think I've got a video somewhere of him literally riding into my friend Julian right off the start line. I'll put it up on the screen if I can find it. But yeah, I imagine it'd be quite hard for the organizers to keep track of every rider and to make sure everyone's following the rules. Either way, big shout out to the North London Thundercats for organizing such a sick event. It was such an amazing race, good vibes all around. And yeah, I highly recommend anyone who's thinking of racing a fixed gear crit in the UK to come down and try it out next year. And back to the race, I believe we're now in the 5th lap. Alex is finally swinging off to the side for me to take a pull. He's definitely been doing a lot of the work in the earlier few laps, So yeah, now it's the first time for me out in the wind and clear roads up ahead for me to kind of suss out my own line and figure it out. But yeah, as we say that, we're now coming up to Julian. So yeah, he's the friend that I mentioned earlier that was hit by the lap rider.
Oh, Julian, come on.
Yeah, you can hear me just giving him a little bit of an encouragement to keep pressing on. It was quite unfortunate for him, honestly, because in that little crash, his boa from his shoe came undone. So I think he was telling me he either had to stop or slow down to retighten his shoe before going back on again. And looking at my heart rate, it's really high at about 190 BPM. So for me, going into the technical section, I was kind of seeing it like a little rest, just because we aren't putting as much power into the pedals. And if we look back into the field behind me, because I'm taking a wider line as mentioned earlier, holding my speed through the corners, I managed to still open up a little gap through the chicanes. And like, full disclaimer, I'm definitely not one of the more technical riders out there, but by being able to identify that one corner that I'm able to get some advantage over the rest of the field was honestly a great benefit for me, not just physically but also mentally, keeping me less stressed out and just generally more relaxed. As we come back out to this outer loop, that's when I put my head down and try to push hard on the pedals again to try and either maintain the gap or even try to widen the gap. So we're now on lap 7. Lap 6 earlier was our fastest lap so far, 1 minute and 1 second. It probably helped that I had a clear road up ahead, but by being out front solo, I know my chances of staying away is pretty slim. If the field behind me are rotating or taking turns to pull, you know, they're definitely gonna catch up to me. It's like at least 6 or 8 of them behind versus 1. So going through this hairpin, I had a quick look back and seeing them catching up and being not quite able to maintain the gap. I don't want to just give a free draft to the person behind me while I'm killing my legs. So I needed to start thinking about my positioning. I might need to start dropping back and finding a draft to take advantage of. And looking back now, I see Hone on my wheel and I'm like, okay, perfect. So maybe after this technical section, I should swing out the way, move out the way, and let him come through to take a pull. Also, looking back in the bunch, it does seem that the field has dwindled down a little. So by keeping it fast on the front, we've managed to drop some riders, and this is good for me because I'm not really a sprinter. So a smaller field means I'll just have to sprint against lesser riders at the end. Getting out the hairpin here, I decided to let Hone pull through underneath me. I did a little soft pedal and slot back onto his wheel. And honestly, it's so much better in this outer loop section, you know, to be in somebody's wheel, to be in someone's draft. Especially since aerodynamics matter a lot more at faster speeds. So just being on his wheel allowed me to have a little bit of a rest while still maintaining a pretty good speed. Plus, don't forget that this is a fixed gear crit, so we are all racing on brakeless bikes. And just for anyone out there who's unfamiliar with fixed gear, it's basically a type of bike that has a drivetrain with no freewheel mechanism. So that means the pedals will always spin together with the rear wheel. And to slow down, all you have to do is resist the pedals, which will slow down the rear wheel, which in turn will slow down the bike. But that also means that not only does it take energy to accelerate and get up to speed out of the corners, it also takes energy to brake and decelerate into the corners. That's why it's really important to be able to find moments during a race to be able to conserve as much energy as possible.
Oh, we gotta get, bro, we gotta get.
You can hear me kind of shouting to Herne in front that we've got a little gap, hoping
Let's
that
go,
would
let's go.
encourage him to press on and push on further. In general, in all races, I've realized I really like to shout and encourage for the person in front of me, because then they would kind of be more incentivized to do more work, and that would be for my advantage too. We're now finishing up the 10th lap, going into lap number 11. And if I remember correctly, I think this was a 15 lap race. So 5 more laps to go. Again, still encouraging Hone up front. You see, he's kind of working. He's going fast. He's going 41, 42k an hour around this outer loop section. So it's definitely working, getting him to keep pushing on. And I'm more than happy to keep sitting on his wheel while he's keeping the pace high, especially since we're starting to get a gap on the rest of the field. But also at the same time, I'm starting to think about my next move. Stuff like where and when do I want to overtake him. I definitely don't think I have the power to accelerate past him on this hairpin, on this short little finishing straight.
4 laps, come on.
And I also don't think I'm confident enough in my cornering abilities or even aggressive enough to do it in the technical section. So I reckon my best bet would be to get ahead on this outer loop and then just ride defensively through the corners and hopefully take home the win. So that was the where. As for the when, I'm basically hoping to stay in his draft as long as possible, and probably even do it in the last lap. But as we go around this corner here, you see things don't always go according to plan.
Oh, fuck.
Just a casual mid-race flip to spice things up a little. Honestly, really unfortunate crash, but I wasted no time and jumped back on my bike immediately. I was not gonna let my first podium position slip away. And my buddy Sean, who was trying to bridge up to us, had managed to get a gap from the main pack, so he was in perfect position after the crash and managed to get into first place. So now it's time for me to chase. I believe we have about 3 laps to go, so it will definitely be a hard effort to try and close down the gap. And my Wahoo fell off during the crash, so that's why there's no more data on the screen. But even without the numbers, I'm guessing that I'm going faster now than before. You can see that I'm using the full width of the track, trying to hold my speed as much as I can. And I think I did manage to kind of reduce the gap a little between us, but realistically there isn't much I can do. Yeah, we can see Sean just rounding the hairpin there as we're going around. And I kind of just realized that it's probably too far for me to catch up, and just give him a little cheer for his first win and first podium too, I think. So yeah, what happened with the crash was Hone basically leaned too far into the corner and had a pedal strike, so that caused his bike to slid out underneath him. And on hindsight, you know, watching back on the video, I probably could have made that corner around him, but honestly I wasn't really thinking at that point. I was just reacting instinctively. I basically just straightened up to brake and slow down, but doing that kind of put me right in line into his back. And yeah, also, isn't it a thing where you kind of end up going where you're looking, right? So that's why people always say to look through the corners. So I was probably fixated on him also after the crash, and unconsciously ended up going into his direction. But you know, end of the day, this is a good learning experience. After all, this is only my second year racing bikes, and probably my 5th or 6th crit race ever. And actually there isn't even that many opportunities to race, you know, fixed gear crits. We literally only have 2 races this whole season. So I've been mainly racing on the track this summer, but there's not many corners in the oval. So definitely still got a lot to learn and get better at. I'm just glad that I didn't get injured from the crash, and I believe Hone wasn't badly hurt either. So no complaints there. Still got my first podium position, got a 2nd place, won a helmet. So perfect, because I needed a new helmet anyways. And if you're still here at the end of the video, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed my POV and race commentary. If you did enjoy it, please let me know in the comments below. And even if you didn't, let me know how I can improve. And if you want to see more of this sort of content, please like and subscribe. I'm going to be posting more stuff like this, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.